Let's get this party started.
You ever wander into that conversation at a party and think, I want to leave, but I'm morbidly curious? Yeah, this is kind of like that. This is Soundwaves TMI.
Well, here we are, Season 2, Soundwaves TMI, and we're back.
There's not 15 people here. That was just like thinking a lot.
It's just, we all have 2 beers each, so that's what that was.
Double fisting.
Double fisting.
Usually I have to pay extra for that.
We derailed in the first 20 seconds. You realize that, right, guys?
Welcome to Soundwaves.
Oh, Lord. We have laughed a bit too much. My voice is suffering. Okay, so it's been so long since we've done this. I don't remember how we start TMI. Do we just go for it?
Like that. Kind of like
it.
that.
All right. We just go for it. I love it.
Yep.
So, Season 7.
So we're back.
Of
Yeah,
the TV.
exactly. So we just started shooting our TV show. We've been off that for a couple of months. We've been off TMI. You actually haven't heard a podcast since, like, I don't know, a long time ago.
Mum's the word. We don't talk about that.
Since yesterday.
That's what happens whenever you take a little bit of a break. You just call it Season 2.
That's it. That's what we're doing. That's it.
Here we are.
Yes.
Season 1 had like 3 episodes, but whatever.
14.
Well, because of the SAG strike and all that sort of stuff, we had to take all this time off.
Right.
Solidarity.
That's it.
Solidarity with our creative. Right.
Oh, we are on one today. Wow. Okay.
You should be here.
You really
should be here to enjoy this.
I feel bad that you're not here.
Yep.
Truly. All right. So season 7. I can't even talk. I've only had a quarter of a beer.
That's true. That's true.
Season 7. Real talk. Very excited what's going to happen. We have a lot going on with Soundwaves TV, Soundwaves FM. You're in your 103rd, 5th episode of Soundwaves FM? 103rd, 105th, 106th?
I was not sure what you were saying there for a second. I wasn't sure that you weren't stroking out there for just a little bit.
Is that a number?
100. Yes. Soundwaves FM is up to 100 and by the time this airs. 5, 4, 5.
107. Let's call it 107.
107.
See?
Oh, I have to do something cool.
Yes,
for
you
107,
do.
Don't I?
Yes, and if it already passed, you
Wow.
better have done something cool.
Yeah.
Shoot.
You have to host that with me.
Okay.
Okay.
See, now you're part of the process. You're
Right.
actually seeing this happen in real time.
Welcome to our meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
No
Drunken,
reason not
stupid
to do
meeting, yeah.
I mean, no reason not to do a planning session and a podcast at the same time.
Right? That's a very good idea. I'm sweating. I've laughed so hard in the last hour. I'm sweating. Oh my God. And yes, we've been here for an hour because behind the curtain, we just filmed a couple of episodes, or at least the intros and outros.
Right.
Wow, listen to me. You're getting the behind the scenes talk, the intros, the outros.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Wow.
You're professional.
Am I? That's your fault for
It's all
thinking
downhill
that.
from here.
Yeah.
Air quotes.
Air
Okay.
quotes.
All right, I'll
get us
steer us back on the road.
Did
Just
we
call me Morse, Joe, and Joe.
Did we actually have a reason to be here?
We do.
doing
We're going to
this?
talk about
Okay.
radio this week.
Oh,
One of my
radio.
favorite topics.
That's right.
Okay.
It's one of all of our favorite topics because the reason why we're sitting at this table being stupid and drinking beer is because at some point we all fell in love with radio.
Yep.
Listening to it, making it, all kinds of stuff. He's very young at heart, but he predates us a little bit. So your radio experience started
old.
before ours. I mean, and it's a cool story too because okay, here's the thing. Yeah, you go in through the front door, and it's never going to happen. You got to kick your way in through the side door every single
Side note
time.
here. Dennis enjoys the back door.
I mean, I'm sorry, he set that one up.
Yeah,
You
no,
could not.
I
You
you
could
know,
not.
You
right.
had to,
I'm
yeah.
not commenting on that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You don't have to.
So yeah,
I did.
So
That picture's in everybody's mind now.
Yeah.
Okay.
great. I'll be getting all kinds of emails now. Yeah.
And some of them he might
Whoa.
respond to.
Depends on how much I've had to drink. Okay,
So anyway,
when you got into radio, it was a while ago.
Yes.
But you didn't answer an ad. You wanted to do something, but you had an ulterior motive. And I was very proud of your. When I heard the story, I was like, that was super clever. So tell us your story, Steve. How did you get into radio?
is it my turn now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, lead
so,
us off.
So back in 1983, when Return of the Jedi was coming out, the local radio station, a big AOR station, was doing a contest, and you could get free tickets to go see Return of the Jedi at a screening in Syracuse, New York. Yeah. And I was like, oh, awesome, cool. You know what? I'm a theater guy. I've got a lot of friends who are, very theatrical and performance oriented and all that sort of stuff. So I got a hold of the station and I said, hey, if I get some friends together and we do costuming and stuff like that and we show up as characters could we get some tickets to go in? And the program director says, oh, that sounds great. As a matter of fact, we're going to work with you, and we'll get a couple of limos, and we'll have all the good guys show up in a white limo, and we'll have the bad guys show up in a black limo.
That's a good program director.
No, see, that was actually not bad, right?
Yeah.
So I was Luke, of course, So we had Luke and we had Darth Vader. My friend Alex from high school and college. She's like 6'4", this big ass dude, and of course, he's 6'4". I'm not, So you got.
I wasn't gonna say it.
You don't have to. Everybody else says. Me, I'm fun sized.
I was gonna say bite size, but that's a whole other thing. Anyhow.
You said we were going to keep that between ourselves.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, so I was Luke, he was Darth. We had my little nephew at the time who's like this tall and like this big now. You can't see, But anyway, he was Yoda because I had a Yoda mask, and we had a whole cast of characters and stuff, and we choreographed a lightsaber duel. So we did this whole thing for this movie screening, right? Just so we could get in and see a movie for free.
That's amazing.
So anyway, after that happened, I got a hold of the program director again. I've kind of always been interested in radio. Is there any chance I could come in and do a little something? And the guy was so impressed with the fact that I was so theatrical and so big and all that sort of stuff and committed to doing the thing that he brought me in, and so that's how I got started in radio. And my first job in radio was on Y94 FM in Syracuse, 100,000 watt AOR station. I covered the whole state.
Puke in the trash can. Holy Lord.
But that was the thing. I know that's your bag, but I was just like, let's go.
You were ready.
Let's go, baby.
What was your first shift on that?
I actually had the night shift.
Yeah. Overnight shift or night shift?
No, night shift to begin with.
Okay.
When I moved to my second radio station, which was a rock and roll station. Okay. And that was a conscious decision on my part, because I went from this 100,000 watt station that covered the entire state, that was an AOR station. Yeah. And remember, this was 1984, so there was my music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm spinning records, and we were just transitioning over to carts and stuff.
Yeah.
So I would be there late nights. And I remember, I distinctly remember playing some awesome music and watching the nighttime cleaners coming in and emptying garbage cans and shit.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in a booth and I'm just singing at the top of my lungs. I got the microphone and I'm going nuts.
I've been there last week.
Putting on the, and they're just walking by, your little carts are going to give me. But I transitioned from that. And I went over to it was at the time it was Y94 FM was the station I started on, and then I went over to the rock and roll Sky 101, and it was this rock and roll station, but it was only like 35,000 watts. Okay. But I didn't care, because it was rock and roll.
Rock and roll. That's
it was rock and and it really was. That was the conscious decision I made, and I it wasn't like they said we've got an opening. It was me going, this is fine.
Yeah,
this is MTV music that I'm listening to here, and this is. But I like that. Oh, I really want that.
That's awesome.
So I got a hold of the program director there, and I said, hey, man, can I, And he brought me in, and I started on overnights. Oh, wow. But I didn't care because it was rock and roll, and I got to actually spin. Oh, and it was
cool.
And they had this huge library, and I would just go in and I would pick because it wasn't even a matter of not like today, and I'm sure we'll get to that as far as programming is concerned. It was my show.
Yeah.
Captain Kirk, overnights, and I did whatever the fuck I wanted.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I played the music that I wanted, and I would just go in and I would pick, just keep going and going and going.
Oh,
and I put on a long form of something, and I'd go to the library and I'd start pulling
I thought you were
stuff.
Going to say go to the bathroom. Pink Floyd time.
No, that was
right. Yeah. Shine on your crazy diamond. Going to pee. Yep.
Stairway to heaven.
Yep. Exactly.
But that was so great because I was able to express myself. I was able to pick the music that I wanted to play and what I was in the mood for, and I was able to create my own stuff. And the year that I worked there, I got to go to the New York State Fair because we had a booth there. And people would come up and they would talk to me about how cool my show was because they loved the fact that I had a taste like theirs.
Yeah.
I played the music that they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And I would get requests every once in a while, and I'd play stuff, and I'd let people know that I was playing this for whoever.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was me doing my thing, and just in the groove. You know, and the closest thing I can come to that now is DJ Bear.
Yeah.
You know, when he does his thing, he's just in that stream of consciousness. And I can relate to that because that's what I was doing back in 1984.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's incredible. That's super cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
You got me all jonesing to hit up my album wall.
Yes.
and just,
I know.
Yeah.
pull stuff off.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, me too. What
So,
about
but
you?
then you know, what was
Well,
your
my
deal
path
back
was completely different. I grew up completely in love with radio. That's all I wanted to do. You know, it's just I would listen to these guys and I appreciated how different shows were. You know, like FM was kind of the wild time back in the late 70s, early 80s. And so when I was in high school, there were some stations that hadn't quite left the weirdness behind, and I love those ones. You know, like here's a show like Steve Beam had a show on KYUU that was a like a nighttime loungy kind of thing, but that's where I first heard HSAS, Wider Shade of Pale, Sammy Hagar, and so he would just play shit off the beaten path, and I'm like, I love this. This is great. And I had a paper route. Total aside, but I had a paper route. There was a station called KSFX that was 103.7, and they had announced that they were flipping to, I think it was like KFRC All News or something like that. And I had a paper route, and I was coming home at like 6 a.m. from delivering papers, and I was listening, and it was their last night. You can find this online. Wow. And it was their last night, and all the DJs were in the studio, and they're all hammered and pissed.
Yeah.
And it's live, and they're like, you're not going to have rock and roll to kick around anymore.
I love
And
it.
that was the greatest thing I've ever heard. I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I grew up wanting to do that. I started a mobile DJ thing where I got to stand in front of people and play stuff, and I did the same thing. You know, I just kind of zoned out. Of course, Soundwaves. You know, where I played requests, but then that morphed into something else where we planned the music in advance. I always loved just picking music and playing it, and then I got my shot to be on the radio, and music had nothing to do with it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, we had Steve Wagner and I produced a movie show at KGO TV, and that's when KGO TV and KGO AM were in the same building. And so it was a total lark. It was a total accident. They needed a way to promote the show. And Wagner was already on KFRC FM doing movie reviews at like 4 a.m. with somebody. And they're like, all right, you go on up to KGO AM. And I got walked into Ken Berry. And, you know, he's like, say something. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, all right, great. And so they put me on the news. And so the show got canceled on KGO after 26 weeks, but they kept me on the news. And so I would drive it. It was like I'd go see movies. I would drive in. I would wait my turn. I would come off the elevator in this beautiful, teeming, frickin' newsroom with 30 professionals coming and going like a scene out of a movie. And then you know, oh, I can't fuck this up.
Like,
here's my level. And, you know, KGO, you know, number one for 29 years. And you're like, oh my God. And here's my 5 minutes.
Right.
And I need to, and so it raised my game. It taught me everything about being in the moment and being like focused, but also allowing yourself to respond to people and everything. And I did that for 15 years.
Wow.
And then everything kind of consolidated, and I ended up in the same building as the Bone.
Right.
And it wasn't the same.
No. By that time,
Things
no.
had evolved.
Things
a certain
had
way.
gotten smaller.
And, you know, jump to today where my awesome boss said, hey, do you want to do a show? And I actually get to do the same thing now because Soundwaves FM, I sit there and I go, what do I want to play? And
Which is something I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
The fact that you just said that from 1984 and in 2024, you're able to do exactly what you were doing.
that's
like,
it. Every week is a blank slate. And I'm
heart
like,
explodes.
My basically it's like Bay Area music.
Yeah.
Can't say shit or fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
That's basically where I'm starting.
Right.
And everything else grows organically out of whatever's happening in the week or what the releases are, what the anniversaries are.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I said this a million times, and I can't thank you enough because I know that what I'm doing now is rare.
It is extremely rare.
Yeah.
I will admit
And I
that.
appreciate that.
Well, you care for it though.
I do.
I wouldn't just turn the reins of the Bone over to just anybody. You know, I do that with you because I trust that you know what you're doing and that you do know that there's bumpers. It's like, you know, we all sort of have guidelines.
Sure.
I mean, I don't want to kill Santa here or anything about radio, but radio is a very different beast. I mean, I've been in radio since 2002. I started a lot like, I can't remember whose story was what, like Say Something, right? I was an intern.
Right, that was you.
Yeah, it was me. Yeah. So I called up That was the part of your story. I called up a PD. I wanted to buy Aerosmith tickets. And I was just asking, this is kids, you don't know. Back in the day, we used to actually go to what's called the box office. And you would sleep there in a sleeping bag overnight.
Oh, yeah, that's
right?
true. Yeah. True, yeah.
And you would buy tickets. And so I wanted to know what time the Aerosmith tickets went on and yada, yada, yada. And I kicked up this conversation with a guy named Greg Zubek at Rock 100.5 The Cat in Oklahoma City. Still there, by the way.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
No
amazing.
kidding. Wow.
And he and I hit it off, and something I said he thought was funny. He thought whatever about me enough to offer me an internship over the phone. And it's funny because I loved radio because I was such a music nut, and I remember very vividly like falling asleep to these stations in Dallas because I lived in Southern Oklahoma, and like it was always on, but it was never anything that I thought I could do. It was never anything.
Yeah.
It was like a whole nother planet,
Gotcha.
right? So when it sort of landed in my lap, I've always said, that radio is my great love affair. And I feel like it has found me twice. It came back to find me. I'll get to that in a second. But it kind of dropped in my lap. And so I was like, F yeah. I've told the story a million times. So the headline is, I lied. I went in the next day. I told him that I was going to get school credit for it. I was not. Because you had to get the gig. It wasn't paid, and they had to have like paperwork. So I faked all the paperwork, faked the logo from UCO, the whole nine. Yeah, right.
Awesome.
And so I got it. And 9 months into it, a woman didn't show up for her shift middays. The middle of the effing day, 50,000 watt Heritage Station covered the whole state. My boss comes over and I'm standing at the printer and he's like, say something. And I go, do you want these papers? He goes, that'll work. He walks me into the studio. Shows me how to like stop and start the music. And he's like, you got it? Sure. 10 a.m. Middle of the week. Everyone I've ever known listens to this station. Rock and roll station. Just effing great rock. And so he leaves the studio. I promptly puke in the trash can. And then I'm like, okay. And I go for it. And I guess I did okay because I got a shift on the weekends. I did overnights for a little while, then did Sunday morning at like the ass crack of dawn. But it wasn't that long. It was like a month, I think. And I did all that. And then he was like, okay, I want you to be part of a morning show on our country station, Cable 104.9. And so I went over there and I was part of two girls and a guy. And it was a masterclass in radio. These people had been in radio for so long, and I was just this wide-eyed little, 20-year-old that was like, huh?
You're just holding on for
I
dear
was
life,
holding
right?
on for
that's like
dear
me
life.
in that newsroom.
Yeah,
It's like you realize, like, holy shit, like I really need to.
Yes.
I need to leap like 10 levels, like now.
Yes. I was sitting next to this woman named Sean, and she had been in radio. She was just like, at 11 when everybody else is like at a 6. And I learned a lot from her and Phil, the guy I was on with. And then I was doing stuff for the Cat. I did stuff for a couple of stations in the cluster. And then I graduated college, and it was time for me to like decide what was next. And I moved to LA. And I gave up on radio, and I moved to LA. I became an assistant to an actor. That's a whole nother Oprah. And then one of the PDs from that cluster in Oklahoma City called me and he goes, hey, I just got the job as program director of ESPN Radio in Los Angeles. Will you come back? Will you come back to radio? And I'm like, sports ball? Ha. But he's like, no, be a traffic reporter. Oh, okay. Be a traffic reporter I'm from Podunkville. I was like, hey, y'all. Like, I mean, that's how I sounded. I'm not exaggerating. He's like, nope, we'll work through it. We'll get you going. So he got me a traffic gig. I was the traffic girl for Colin Cowherd on ESPN in LA. Didn't know shit from Chanel. I had no idea what was happening, but I made it through. And then I just kept doing that and worked my way through LA and then worked my way here. And much like you, I was like rock and roll. When I moved here, the Bone was it for me. There was no other station that existed.
Yep.
Period. Lamont and Taylor were fucking legends, and I was going to be on their show.
There you
I made it happen. And I was their traffic reporter, and then I just kept working really hard and working long hours as a bonus, as a hobby, because I wasn't getting paid for most of those hours. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Telling the truth. And I just kept doing it and worked my way up, and here we are.
You know what's weird
it's a
is
very
that
short version of that story.
you and I worked together at the same company at two different stations for how many years before we ever met?
What year did you start? Do you remember at KGO?
1997.
1997, and went to what?
I went to up until a few years ago, until KGO died.
Okay, so I started there as a part-timer fill-in for Mona, and people who know, in 09, 08.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I
over
became,
at Hawthorne, right? Yeah.
and then I became full-time at 2012. So there was like a significant chunk of years that we were probably passed in the hallway or who knows
Well,
what.
I came in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I don't wake up at the hours you wake up.
Right.
So you were probably there at a whole nother time.
Right. Yeah, I
than
was. I was always a morning girl there. That is true.
Well, and you gloss over the fact that I stuck around and I blah, blah, blah. You're the goddamn program director of the station at this point.
I mean,
started off puking in a garbage can, and the next thing you know, she's running a goddamn station.
That's awesome.
It is it's a trip of a story. I mean, 22 years, of course, went by in a flash.
Yeah.
And there's so many stories and memories and all of that. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be the first female program director of the Bone.
That's better. That's
Never did I
Don't bury
think.
the lead, for
I
fuck's
know.
sake. Come on.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. No, it's true. I never thought that would happen. You
That's
know,
great.
And every day I'm like, who's in charge here? Ah, shit. It's me.
It's me.
I have to make that decision. I have to schedule all that music.
What was the most important thing you learned, you guys both learned with your shifts? Because I can tell you mine. Mine was that I used to, I came in to review 4 movies or whatever in 5 minutes. And I remember Greg Jarrett, it was Greg and Rosie Allen. And I remember he said, you got to do it faster. And I said, so how do I set it up? You know, I need to tell you what the movie's about before we play the clip, before I can tell you if it's good. And he's like, no, he said 10 seconds and you need to be into the review. And so I was like, I need to tell you what the whole movie's about in 10 seconds. And I learned how to do that.
Yep.
I learned storytelling you need it at 10 seconds or you need it for a minute and a half. And I learned how to do that. And I never knew that was a muscle.
Yes.
But it is.
It is.
You know?
It's edit, and edit again. That's what my program director used
that's
to say.
interesting.
Edit some more.
And I hear you do that when you tell a story. Like, I've got 30 seconds to tell this story. And you just yep, exactly. Exactly.
I hate that I'm
How about,
For me, it was never like that, because for me, I got to a point where it's like if I'm sitting at home and I'm playing music. That was my mentality. I would play what I wanted to hear and I would do my thing. And if everybody else was digging it, that's great. I wasn't playing for the audience. I was playing for me. I was creating my own little bubble, my own little environment, and I was enjoying what I was doing, and I was having fun for 4 hours, and I was doing my thing. And if you liked it, awesome. And people liked it, Right. But I wasn't thinking about out here.
Yeah.
I didn't have logs that I had to fill out or anything like that. I just you're going to be on from here to here. Fill it with music.
Oh my God!
Wow.
I mean,
And
that's
I
the
did.
glory land.
Yeah.
You lived in the glory land.
Oh yeah, no, that was rarefied air right there.
It really was and is. I mean, it's. I hate that I'm going to say this, but I'm going to be really honest. A couple of lessons I've learned back to the editing the story is. I'm not going to say his name because this could end up in the trades, and I'm not going to do that. A very prominent, very important person in radio once told me, "Get to the fucking faster." And it was funny because he would be like, in porn? And I was like, nope, I don't. Nope. He's like, there's always a story in porn. And a guy comes and he's a pizza delivery guy and there's all this talk and blah, blah, blah. But what do we want? What do you want? What do we want? I'm like, I don't want anything. I don't watch porn. And he was like, no, we want to get to the fucking faster. When you're telling a story, get to the fucking faster. So, I mean, he's right. Like, it's not the most eloquent way to put it, but he's right.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a lesson for me that's really done me well. But also, a big one for me is yes and you probably know this because you've done a lot of improv as well. Improv.
Oh, right.
Whatever's going on, go with it.
Yeah.
Go with it.
Right.
Yes and build on it. Like never stop because once you stop that creative flow, you've hit a brick wall.
Yep.
Right? And everything stops and the audience feels it. Like just build on it. Get the most ridiculous you can. Take it to 11. And that is probably the most prominent lesson that sticks out of my mind. There's a lot.
I mean, Lamont and Tonelli have done yes and to perfection for almost 40 years.
They invented yes and. And the irony of me saying that is that I'm the girl that's supposed to pull them back from 11.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because you need dynamics on a show, right? You can't live at 11.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they always take it to 11, and I try to pull them back to an 8 or 9 to balance.
You know what's funny is I do a shift now on 107.7 The Bone.
Yeah, you do.
And so I have 5 hours and X amount of segments. I find myself getting more silly and less disciplined than I ever do on the other show.
That makes me very happy.
No, I am.
Yeah,
I was just I'll do something that's completely ridiculous, and I'll go, Boy, that was a little weird, but okay. No, I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to do another take.
Do not. That's the thing. Like, you just roll with that. And that makes me so happy as a programmer. Like, whenever I started being a programmer almost 3 years ago, which is insane. And I know that's baby steps to a lot of programmers that have done it for 400 years. But to me, managing people is finding what they do and let them do it. Mm-hmm. Like, they do it well. Let them roll. Don't micromanage people. If people want to be quirky, be quirky.
Yeah.
Be yourself. The more you're yourself, the more the audience feels you.
Well,
they connect
the
with
freedom,
you, right?
though, that you give to allow people, like, I would have never found that silly part of me. I do this. I do goofy shit. Right. But I'm finding that the goofy line is moving. And you allow that, you allow me to do, here's my little, my playground that I play with.
There's your sandbox.
And
I like to think of it that way, yeah.
But I'm kind of moving where the lines are just a little bit, and it's fun.
I love it. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
I love when people can just be absurd because there's just not enough of it.
Yeah.
We take ourselves way too seriously. There's way too much in the world to be serious and tweaked out about, I mean, you can turn on anything and be like, bleh, at the bone, and here and everywhere I'm at personally, I want us to just have fun. We're here for one spin as far as we know. Let's freaking go for it.
We got to enjoy it,
I mean, go for it.
And that was one of the things about the early days of Soundwaves when we were doing things, 40 years ago, was that we would sit down with the DJ system and we would pull music and we would just play what music we wanted to play, and people would get up and dance and we would have fun. And that's one of the things, we Dennis and I always celebrate our birthday.
Oh yeah.
Because we're one day apart.
Yep.
And we have our birthday weekend and birthday parties and stuff like that. And my whole thing has always been about, I want to be able to have a party at a place where we can play our music, we can do our thing, we can be together, we can, and going to a restaurant and having dinner is nice and hanging out is nice and everything. But I miss those days when we were able to just be ourselves.
Yeah.
To be someplace where we could just be stupid.
Yes.
Doesn't it suck to be out in public and have to worry about how you conduct yourself? I mean,
you know what I'm just realizing in real time? We don't have a record player in here.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's
You're
interesting.
right.
I mean, we do have the speaker, and we play.
No, but we
kind of need a turntable.
We kind of need a turntable.
She's right.
I want to see Steve in his 1984 Element. Am I right?
Which means we need to put vinyl on those walls
that's what I'm saying.
there.
We've got tons of room to put vinyl.
All right.
And
all right.
we need a record player. I think that's where we.
All right,
that's where we leave it.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm down.
There we go.
All right, here we go.
To be continued on the next episode or season
Yes,
of TMI.
yes.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Soundwaves TMI, featuring Chasta, Steven Kirk, and yours truly, Dennis Willis. The part of the announcer was played by Kelly Ogden. Please like and subscribe to Soundwaves TMI wherever you are listening from. Also, please consider helping us continue our mission of lifting and supporting independent music and the Bay Area music scene by becoming a Soundwaves patron. In exchange, you'll be the first to see and hear weekly shows such as Soundwaves TV, Soundwaves FM, and the Soundwaves TMI podcast, as well as exclusive content. Just go to patreon.com/SoundwavesTV. For all things Soundwaves, follow us on social media at SoundwavesTV, or just go to SoundwavesTV.com.